Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations in the Future of Work. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into AI, not just as it is today, but some of the journey that it's taken and some individuals who are experts in the space have taken in their discovery of it. And I thought there would be no better person to welcome on the show than Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. Delighted to be here. I'm calling or speaking to you from Dublin, Ireland now. So we're at probably about just coming up to 20 to 3. And you're based, Rachel, in New York, is that right?
Boston, close.
Boston. I've spent quite a bit of time in Boston too. So delighted to be on the show.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, we're really excited about this one. And I mean, I'd love to hear just for the audience, if you don't mind giving a little bit of background, just in terms of things you've done in the past, things you're working on now.
Yeah, so I'm 17 years in the world of technology staffing, and I would say God, what I'm 22 years in the world of business. I've got 4 years business degree. Got a master's from strategic management planning for Smurfit Business School. But I was always interested in applied and practical applications in everything that I've done. So I started off working in kind of retail, so working in Brown Thomas, which was kind of like it's kind of similar to like Nordstrom or Harrods when I was in Ireland. So that put me through college. So I really got a good understanding of customer service there. Then I went on to Enterprise Rent-A-Car, where I did a graduate program, and I got to learn how to actually run a 250 car fleet. How do you sell, upsell? How do you make sure that customer service is past 95%? Because in the world of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, you could be making loads of money for the branch, or you could be upselling loads of cars, and your insurance could be really low in terms of your premiums, in terms of damage. But unless you got 95% where people would refer you to a friend, you didn't get a dime, right? So when that is
Mm.
fixated into your mindset, you go well and above what the customer wants. So that's been ingrained with me from the last kind of 20 years in everything that I do and everything that we're looking to do. So I spent 11 years with a staffing firm, multinational staffing firm, where I was a very effective recruiter. Then became a manager in predominantly in tech, and then diversified in life sciences. But I always wanted to do my own thing. I always wanted to kind of get involved in business and actually put some skin in the game. And what I was seeing more and more when I was attending Gartner events, good God, what was this, like 12 years ago? I was seeing that AI and cybersecurity were becoming more and more prevalent. And I said, I really have a feeling about this. I think this AI thing is going to take off. So what I did was I said, before I'm going to jump ship, I'm going to go and meet people and ask them a simple question. Is AI hyped? Is it not? And I did 84 interviews in Ireland with people from academia and industry and saying, is AI hyped? Is it not? Should I set up a staffing firm? I've got kids and a mortgage. What should I do? And they were like thinking, yeah, I think it's something there. And I handed my notice, co-founded a staffing firm called Aldous, and we look to kind of grow across Europe and US. What we wanted to do different though from regular staffing was we wanted to build relationships with customers very quickly. And we wanted to try to get social proof within the marketplace that our brand could be trusted. And I felt that the simplest way, and this is probably like my only $1 million idea,
Mhm.
was to interview leaders in the field of AI, asking them how are they using AI in action, what's the impact. So we created this AI in action podcast. And then the second was AI mentors, which was how do you go build a data science team, but
Mhm.
generate return on investment from it? And how do you actually scale that? And they're difficult things to actually do. And we created the podcast series. And coming up to, I think this month, we've probably got close to 1,000 episodes. So
Great.
we just kept it running, scaling it, and then kind of got it out into more of the service now field. But what that enabled me to do was really understand the problems that our customers are facing day to day, but
Mhm.
also enabled me to understand that if we spent a lot of time with our customers figuring out their culture, what they do every day, they're going to be more inclined to actually want to work with us from a staffing perspective because we took that time. Locally, with all the learnings I had from those 84 interviews, I said, why don't I create a not for profit and make these interviews accessible to people in Ireland? And I created AI Ireland. We took 50 of those interviews, made it available for the podcast series. And then we've been writing blogs ever since and putting them out there. Our goal is to help a
Mhm.
million people become literate in AI. And then we created the award ceremony. And the award ceremony is going for the last 7 years. And we showcased over 650 applied applications of AI in the island of Ireland. So we're trying to learn and we grow and engage with people through conversations that matter to them. But fundamentally, probably what's helped us most is we meet people where they're at. So either on the staffing perspective, on all this, where we get to understand where they're at from a technical journey, what type of skills they need. And then from the AI Ireland perspective, we're just trying to give literacy to people just so they've got like a bit of a point of view if they should use the technology, if they should not, and they got more of a balanced overview. So that's a little bit about myself.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Very impressive background and
Thank you.
longevity with technology and AI specifically. So let's dig into some of those things that you mentioned, right? So I feel like for a lot of people, AI didn't exist, and then all of a sudden one day ChatGPT came online, right?
Absolutely.
But of course, like that's certainly not the case. So can you share more about like your early days of discovering AI? I know you mentioned a little bit briefly in your introduction, but like what were you seeing in the AI space? What did it look like? And what made you think, actually, I think this isn't just hype. I think there's a real like revolution waiting to happen here.
It was funny because you're around AI since 2017, 2018, like myself. You kind of were like, if you know that kind of everything's a nail if you've got a kind of hammer. So I was kind of thinking AI was kind of everywhere, anywhere, because I was kind of biased because all my
For
journey was
sure.
AI.
Right.
But when ChatGPT came to town, it put an interface to a technology that Google already had, the transformer, and they gave ChatGPT where people could actually start to use it and get instant feedback, good, poetry, images, whatever it might be. And then within 5 days, 1 million people were using it, 100 million people in 2 months. I was sitting with CFO of OpenAI 2 weeks ago, Sarah Fryer. She told me 1 billion users are using like
Wow.
ChatGPT, and 85% of those users are actually outside of America. Like Germany is one of the biggest markets, which I was kind of shocked about.
Right.
So suddenly people had access to this technology. But before that, we had recommendation engines like Netflix, right? Or making a purchase on Amazon or Zalando, where if you were to get the recommendation right by like 2 or 3%, that could be like a huge significant shift for that business profitability because you're getting so many different users now opting in to either make an additional purchase or Netflix spend more time on the platform. But there's also like computer vision, where computer vision, if anyone sees any of the autonomous vehicles like Waymo, where we've
Mhm.
got like 750,000 drives happening a week without no one in the car, that's all done by these kind of vision systems that can see someone walking across the road, a dog, cat, pigeon, and actually stop and kind of manage through all that different area. So they started to become really, really prevalent back 2018, 2019, 2020. And then you obviously everyone engaging with Alexa, natural language, voice, and all that kind of stuff too. But it was only when ChatGPT and generative AI came about that was significant because, interestingly enough, AI investment was actually dropping, but generative AI came straight up. That it really kind of get the limelight. And if anyone's watching this and they don't know what generative AI, it's kind of title will probably give it away, but it's creating images, creating
Mhm.
text, creating video, and this is that kind of multimodal experience. But people want to know, how do I use it to be more productive? How do I actually use it
Yeah.
for my business? How do I upscale myself? And that's probably my passion area, is the applied stuff to
Right.
actually make people more literate in what they do.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and we're like big on that too. You know, you mentioned computer vision, virtual sapiens. That's where we started with. And it's interesting because when we started, we were so focused on the computer vision, behavioral aspects, nonverbal aspects of communication. And that's what our AI did, was provide people with feedback on that. And then when Gen AI came on board and was available via APIs, like it made something that would have taken years probably to develop well available with like a half a day of work.
Oh, it's crazy.
Which is
It's
just
crazy.
crazy.
Like it's mad.
Yeah.
Like people say, "Oh, AI, it's overhyped, it's overhyped." And I think they're referring to Gen AI. And from a market value perspective, I totally get why you'd say
Yeah.
AI is overhyped. But from a business value perspective, particularly for small to medium enterprises.
Yeah.
Like it is totally underhyped the value that you can get specifically to your use cases if you double down on it. And I just don't, I think we're actually just scratching the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. But at the same time, I do feel like there's a little bit of like a contrast between the opportunity that does exist and this like global concern people have that we can get into later, about AI like replacing humans and taking over the world and like all that. And I don't know. I like working with AI so closely every day. I'm like, I think we're just like really not like we have to, in order to, we use AI role plays, right? So AI will be there as your conversation partner.
Love
And
that.
like, it's amazing. But like the amount of guardrails and the amount of things that we have to tell the AI from a prompting perspective that most humans would just know, like,
Yeah.
or have been taught over like their entire lives of social interactions with other humans. Like you have to tell AI to do that. So in my mind, I'm like, AI is amazing and it is going to completely transform the way we behave and act as humans, but it still requires so much human in the loop. And I'm not really a believer of like AI is going to totally replace humans and take over the
Yeah.
world
Yeah. Yeah.
personally. But I
Yeah. No,
mean, maybe 25 years from now, but hopefully
yeah.
by then we'll have systems in place to prevent that.
I got to see this firsthand. So for episode 200 of the AI Ireland podcast, I had ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot interview me.
Okay.
And I didn't get to use Claude because it didn't have his voice, didn't find his voice before it, but I can do it now, so I should try it out. And for the most part, it was okay of asking me the question. So what I did was I said, okay, I want you to research everything you know about the AI Ireland podcast, all the
Hmm.
guests, all the episodes, and come up with 10 questions
Hmm.
that you think are the most suitable ones. It came up with incredible questions. The questions were so good, I had to actually take some time to write out my answers because they were so
Yeah.
good. But then when we actually did it,
Hmm.
the wheels started to come off. So they
Yeah.
would go through the questions
Yeah.
and answer, and then suddenly there'd be just silence. I'm like going,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah.
Why aren't you asking your question? And it would stop. So I haven't released the bloopers, but I should, where it's me just like trying to fix this and be like
That's a great
leaning
idea.
over, going, why aren't you asking that question again? Or why are you pausing? You know who I am, but are you referring to me back as, do I want to ask you a follow-up? So it was really kind of clunky, but for the 20-minute episode or so, it looked really, really seamless
Yeah.
that I can actually play out. So the more you spend time with these models, you can see
Yeah.
the kinks in them.
Yep.
And also in some cases, they're actually regressing with the answers they give you, right?
Yes.
I don't think they actually know the answer to why that is. But this is where from the people losing their jobs perspective, you still need to understand when it's wrong. So that means you still need to understand the process in
Yes.
terms of what you're doing, right? So,
Absolutely.
so the example I'm giving is, there's certain consultancies out there at the moment where their graduates are just all in on ChatGPT, Copilot. They're literally doing everything with it. But consequently, when there's an error, they can't actually pinpoint
Yeah.
when there's an error.
Yeah.
So there's paper over those cracks, really, really fundamental. That's an issue. And then the consultants, more veterans, were saying, "Hey guys, let's get off this now. Let's teach you how to use it. But we're not expecting you to be a 20-year vet unless you can actually spot where it's telling a lie or that doesn't sound right or the aspects. So you still need to know the process. Now, from a school perspective, I think you still need to learn from an early age to start to use the prompting
Yeah.
if and when to start to use it. I saw you probably saw it as well. The ChatGPT for your brain, does it make you dumb? Does it not all this kind of analysis that was shared out? My kind of simple take on this is if you're going to get ChatGPT to do every single thing for you, yes, your brain is not going to be in the best possible place. But
Yeah.
if you're using it as an augmentation tool and you're actually genuinely working with it, I don't see any issue for it. But like everything, you have to be careful of the extremes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that study, apparently was done with like 9 people, and like I don't know if it's like the
Yeah.
most
So
defensible
so again,
study.
these
So
spurious correlations you have to kind
yeah,
of be cognizant for as well.
yeah. So yeah, talk more about your book and how you talk about AI, and like part of your work is like you said, literacy and education in AI and getting more people to be able to understand how it works and understand its limitations and not be terrified of it and know how to use it without like totally atrophying. So can you share more about your values around this, literacy and AI and
Yeah.
education?
So the easiest way I'd say is I think we need to meet people where they're at, right?
Hmm.
So from reading an awful lot of books and then writing books, I kind of quickly understood that most people don't read books and they don't necessarily finish off the books necessarily anymore. So if you're going to grab someone's attention with a book about AI, for example, you have to have practical use cases that someone's going to resonate to. And that's particularly how I learn is practical use cases. So I always talk about my mum, 75, 65, and my dad, 71. They are my guinea pigs for everything that I do. So with my mum, she uses ChatGPT to help her create an itinerary for a tour guide business. Literally polishes it up, makes it more accessible, and she can turn it into any different language she wants. Or she uses tools like Canva to turn it into little brochures or little kind of social media copy. Now, for her, that's pretty much where she needs to be. Now, one of the companies, Get Your Guide, reached out to her and said, listen, we'd love you to be able to do a tour for us, but we need you to have a website to be able to actually as a reference point. So what we did was we jumped onto like Lovable, which is like a tool similar to Replit, where we just created a design, created a website, and then we showed my dad, and my dad was like, "What's my friend Peter going to do?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Well, who's Peter? Peter's a web designer.
Hmm.
Um, he's been doing this 30 years. It's like what Lovable's going to take his job." And I was like, "Well, I think Peter's got two options, right? He can use Lovable and do really responsive work and start to create things that he wants to create and have a better augmentation experience, or he can compete against Lovable. And I don't necessarily think that's competing against Lovable is the place to be." And he said, "My only issue is I don't think he's ever going to know about Lovable." Which brings me to the point of, well, he's going to be indirectly competing against them.
Yeah.
And if he's going to be indirectly competing against it because he doesn't have literacy, that's
Right.
a real issue.
Right.
And what I want to say to people is, why don't you just make people aware of
Hmm.
these are the products, these are the tools,
Yep.
and then if you want to use them, amazing. And if you don't want to use them, that's your choice. But at least you're cognizant
Yeah.
that you might review that and go back in the next year or so and go, actually, what, I might try to do that now because something's changed within
Right.
my business. But my biggest worry is people will never know. And this is where the job loss, the fear,
Right.
and they get isolated, they're not going on the journey, and then it becomes it's all the technology's fault. But I just think it's more of a literacy perspective as well.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that makes a ton of sense. Because obviously, like with knowledge comes power, and certainly a lot more optionality in terms of the decisions you make and how you interact with AI or not.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really wonderful mission. Um, in all these conversations you've had with leaders about like technology, AI transformation, are there any examples of either AI transformations or just transformations that have brought in these new technologies that have been done well?
Do you know, there's one company that just really comes to mind is a company called Hippocratic AI. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen them or heard of them, but I think they've raised like 155, $160 million recently. I think up to Series C, Series D. But what they're looking to do is, and what they're doing is giving you like an extension of your doctor via like an avatar. So let's say it's 7 o'clock at night and you've got your antibiotics, but you've also know that you're on meds, and you call up your doctor to say, "Hey, I totally forgot to let you know, but I'm on these meds. When you give me antibiotics, what's going to happen, right?"
Mm,
And in the example, the digital avatar goes through a response as an extension of the doctor based on all the lady's medical history. And they could actually give that real-time conversation to do. Now that lady can then call up the next day and speak to a doctor whatever you want, but they're so confident of the responses of these avatars as these extension of these trusted surgeries or hospitals. I just feel that is the future of healthcare. Like that
yeah.
to me is the future of healthcare. Like if 1% of hospitals make money in the US, right? I'm guessing it's probably similar across Europe, where healthcare is completely it's broken, right? So you need to try to reimagine that. And
Mm,
for me, to have a transformation perspective, I think that's lovely. The other aspect is if you think about how hospitals are becoming smarter about workflows. So one of the biggest challenges you have in Ireland, and I'm guessing it's probably across the world, is no-shows at appointments. And it's
mm,
so difficult for people to get an appointment, first of all. And then when there's a no-show, you can't even get someone else in
right.
because, and it's complete waste of time because the practitioners don't even get to do what they want to do. So simple ways to overcome that is to have an avatar call up and say, "Hi, Mr. Kelly, your appointment is at 6 o'clock. I just want to confirm A, you're still attending. B, will you need parking? C, can you pay the bill now rather than before? So it means we've got a timely finish for you, whatever it might be." So that's one way that you could alleviate it as well. But another way is, let's say you come out of your appointment with your doctor, and you can actually record the conversation that your doctor gave to yourself, and that's shared with you with an MP3. So think about it like Notebook LM, where you've got these kind of taking these your transcripts from um, video blogs, or it could be a PDF document or a Stanford report. You can get it to turn into this podcast style where these two avatars talk to each other. But these two avatars will talk about what happened at your appointment. And when you're driving home, the avatars can tell you in real time what happened in the appointment, just in case you forgot something or didn't actually have the insights.
Mm,
But let's say you've got a loved one who wants to know what happened at your appointment,
right.
but you don't want to talk. So my dad, "Oh, I got on grand, that was fine. Could you just share me with the MP3 what actually happened?"
Yeah, totally.
No,
Wow.
turns out you're actually not fine. You have to do this, this, and this, and you also have to take this medication. Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever. That again is just a wonderful way to reimagine the healthcare process. Start to use these tools in simple, practical ways. So those types of transformations get me really, really excited. And then you've got drug discovery, where you've
oh,
got the
yeah,
Mardina vaccine
yeah,
created in 48 hours, one of the top vaccines. So they're OpenAI house for literally pretty much every different division. So
yeah,
I'm always passionate about how they've moved the dial across people,
mhm,
process, the product, having a safe place to play and using it, and then leveraging their proprietary data, right? So those 5 Ps
mm,
allow incredible transformations, but you have to underpin them with a perspective, right? What is your
yeah,
perspective? And
mm,
my feeling is people don't get to have a perspective on AI or any of these tools because they're so busy going down the hamster wheel that they actually need to have some think time, get off the hamster wheel, get
yeah,
into the sandbox, play with the tools, and then actually start to reimagine what the org structure needs to look like,
right.
what the job description needs to look like, what their customer experience needs to look like. But because we're all tunneling, I have to get through today, I have to get through to the next task,
Yep,
they're not allowed to do that.
totally. Yeah, I mean, we I think especially for smaller companies, I think smaller companies and larger companies have different issues, right? But at the end
Yeah,
of the day, it kind of comes down to that same ability to have the space to look at things more broadly and think about some of the ways that transformation could take place, and then thinking about some of the processes to put that transformation in place
yeah.
in general, right? So we've talked a lot about some of the things that you're really excited about when it comes to AI. So what makes you nervous about AI?
I think the first thing is that people don't necessarily know to use it correctly, right? So
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
first thing. So when you think about Harvard Business Report came out recently, and it just blew my mind. The number one way people were using AI was as a therapist, right?
right.
So as a therapist, which I was just like, that is incredible. And then the second was organizing your life. So
Yeah,
if you think about all those horrible emails you get or those messages with your partner that you don't have to reply to, you're sticking it into an AI to get you how to figure that out. The other aspect is like character AI, second fastest growing company of all time, and people are spending 2 to 6 hours with their perfect avatar, having deep, meaningful relationships to them. So,
crazy.
so you're that boyfriend asks open-end questions and listens, or that class bully that was really mean to you that you can go
Yeah,
back,
yeah.
or that manager that doesn't quite get you, but you can go and have role play discussions. And I would fear that
Mm,
one of the most searched terms still is "I'm lonely. How do I make friends?" that we're going to start to have
Mm.
these AI friendships for our youngsters coming through who don't want to have more difficult, messy friendships and conversations because the AI gets you, right? And you spend time with people that get you. So if you're going to spend more time with these avatars that are just going to be trained to keep you happy and engaging with you,
Mhm.
what does that mean for society, right? And
Totally. Yeah.
that's what kind of freaks me out. That's
Totally.
what I kind of get worried about.
Yeah, that's so funny. I like, was it Replica AI, that company,
Yeah,
and some of the it's funny because I do know some people who have these like AI buddies, and there are some applications or situations where you're like, oh, that's actually great. It's great that that person is able to practice like social interactions and socialize with
yeah,
like a zero consequence buddy, right? But yeah, you're right that there's obviously a little bit. I think it depends on, that person's age too, and like,
yeah,
are they in that formative, like, are they now going to expect that their like human girlfriend or boyfriend or significant other is going to just appease them and be like, you're right, I love you.
there you go,
You
right? Or our
know,
friendship,
kind of crazy.
because our friendships then, right? So it's
Yeah,
kind of like we start to get more polarized. The algorithm
yeah,
just starts to show us what we wanted to see because we keep clicking in it.
yeah.
So my updates are going to be completely different than your updates. So it's
Right,
kind of like Netflix, but like 50x, right?
right.
So that is an issue that I'm really really concerned about. And then we also have the kind of the issue where we've now got humanoid robots coming in, and I think they're going to be wonderful for all age homes and kind of companion robots. Really really wonderful applications for that. Um, but again, what happens when we've got one or two kind of bad errors from kind of a hardware updates? What happens to when
Yeah,
a billion robots kind of go rogue, right? So
yeah,
they would be more kind of practical applications that I would uh, figure out. But
yeah.
if you've ever dealt with a really really good AI that hallucinates, it's like they are a proper psychopath.
Totally,
That
it's
that
crazy.
like everything they're saying has so much conviction,
Yeah,
nuance, data behind it that you're almost second guessing yourself to go, it is red, right? It is red. Not telling
yeah,
me it's green. Like it's just that's
yeah,
scary.
yeah. Totally. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's interesting. I think though that like the work that you're doing around developing the awareness and understanding the boundaries and limitations of AI is going to be part of what helps people avoid some of those issues,
Yeah,
hopefully.
I think having a balanced perspective.
Yeah.
You're just saying to people, hey, this is the pros.
Yeah.
Here's the cons.
Yeah.
If you're going to introduce this to your business, have an assumption log to say, hey, here's all my values or ethics on this. How do they resonate against your brand or business? Okay, well, we're off a bit. So we can go on this journey together and fix it and
Mhm.
come up with a common source of the truth, or we're going to be way off. So I think it's, yeah, it's multifaceted, kind of like life, though, right?
Yep, absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for joining today and sharing your perspective. It's really fascinating to hear all the different ways that you're, coming at this, the future of work, future of companies, future of leadership. How can people get in touch with you or follow your work?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me today. That got went like a couple of minutes, so it was really really good fun. I think the easiest thing is just to probably follow me on LinkedIn. I usually am just throwing out ideas left, right, and center on that, and I try to share some of the content piece that we have. I think that's probably the easiest way to get in touch, and hopefully, if they've got anything they want to resonate or talk about, I'd be very very happy to share some thoughts.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. And as always, thanks to our audience. We'll see you next time.